I was born in 1983 in Fort Worth, Texas. And when I tell you that my life was very sketchy, that things were not stable, I mean exactly that. You see, my dad is born in America, but my mother was born and raised in the Bahamas. They met in college in 1980. And whenever there were issues in our marriage, or I say our marriage, really your parents' marriage is your marriage too, because you're affected by it. Whenever there were issues in my parents' marriage, we would pick up and we'd move. We lived all throughout the Texas area because, again, that's where my dad was raised. And whenever we weren't in the Texas area, most likely if we weren't in the Bahamas, we were somewhere close by, like Florida. I remember going through that as a young man and feeling like my life was not stable, feeling like I had to deal with things that other young people didn't have to deal with. Hey, at least you got to go to the same school and you got to hang out with the same friends and you got to see the same places most of the time. For me, however, it was always a new surrounding I had to adjust to, new school I had to adjust to, new friends I'd have to make, and then when we moved, I'd have to lose those friends and start the process all over again. We did that often in my young adolescent years. I remember that. I remember going through that. I remember feeling as if it was just the most stressful thing, and I couldn't understand why. I didn't understand at that time. Why couldn't my folks just keep us in one place? I remember having to explain to my friends in the Bahamas, where my mother's from, whenever we were back in the islands, where we had been while we were gone and why, and then having to deal with being played on or cracked on or folk teasing me because I had an accent when I'd moved back to the US. You know, it was always a funky thing for me. So, you know, at the end of the day, as a broken, wounded person, I can trace back to my childhood as to a lot of the wounds that I experienced. I can trace it back to those times. I can look back and say that, yeah, it was my adolescent years that broke me. And you probably can too. I remember as a youth, I was 10 years old. The year was 1993. We were living in Atlanta, Georgia. See, I told you we moved all over the place. And Desert Storm had just kicked off. I'll never forget it. And I was told to go to the vehicle and grab something out of the back trunk. And upon my arrival, I open the trunk and I see a box of Playboy magazines. Mind you, I was only 10. Imagine that I was already emotional and already wounded with the type of situation I was dealing with at home. I hadn't said to you yet that my father was abusive. And I'm not talking about just physically, or he was verbally abusive too. And I remember dealing with all of that. And then again, like I said, at age 10, I stumbled upon Playboy magazines. Man, that really did a number to me. That messed up my psyche. You know, we as wounded, broken people, we find a way to dodge reality, if you will, or to at least avoid it for a time. And the Playboy magazines, lusting over a woman's body, yeah, that quickly became one of the avenues that I would use to dodge my emotional instability. You know, I remember we moved back to the Bahamas. Again, I told you that was a back and forth game of tennis, almost us up and down, up and down. And this particular year, we were in the Bahamas. You remember the old-fashioned satellite dish, back before cable, back before Dish Network. It was a big old 6 to 7 foot satellite dish in the backyard. You would turn the signals on the dial in the house and the satellite would move or shift to pick up a signal. Well, we had one of those at my grandparents' house where we lived. And I remember looking through the channels.